Anyone who played Photon at the original flagship location in Dallas will likely remember Beathan Miller, the former manager of the Dallas facility. Today, he's joining me to share some of his memories from those early days of Photon. Welcome, Beathan.
Good afternoon.
Well, I just kind of like to take you back in time a little bit and think back to what your role was. And first of all, were you there at the Dallas facility from day one?
I started about a month after it opened.
What was your kind of a role in the whole picture of Photon?
Well, originally I just started off as a basic employee, controlling, running the games, getting people suited up, giving them instructions on how to play the game, kind of a referee on the field, make sure nobody was getting too rowdy or running around.
These being the early days of laser tag, nobody knew what laser tag was or what photon was. So, what was the whole atmosphere and reaction to this game when it first opened and when people started playing?
Oh, it was crazy. This was like inventing sliced bread over again. Everybody loved it. I fell in love with it immediately. They were just, this was really a life-like version of Star Wars. But instead of playing it on a computer monitor or TV screen, you were actually in the game and running around and experiencing everything. It was great.
Can you describe for somebody who wasn't there, what was the game like and what was the atmosphere at the center?
Oh, that was her. The center was just jovial. Everybody was having a good time all the time. Basically, the game was you experience uh, getting an introduction into the game. You had to go to the waiting room, and then they brought you into the staging area, and they suited you up in gear. They separated you into two teams, the red team and the green team, and each team got its own separate instructions on how to play the game and the do's and don'ts. And then you were taken to the field, designated area where everybody started, and basically you waited for the audio countdown.
Welcome, Photon Warriors. Commence strategic maneuvers at audible command signal. 5, 4, 3, 2,
And
1.
once that began, you basically got to run around the whole field any way you wanted to. It was really, it was Star Wars in real life.
And what kind of a field design was used in Dallas?
The Alpha field. That was the basically very first field ever designed, and it was the two-story field with the observation deck.
Now, where was the actual center in relation to the offices and how much interaction was in play as this all was being developed, as new fields and new technology emerged?
They were they were right next door to each other. I mean, basically, when the playing from the playing center, you just happen to open a door and walk right into the offices and the laboratory and everything. So it was just moments away from each other.
How much interaction was going on between George Carter and the players and having that close quarters? I'm sure you got to try out some cool new things as they were in progress.
Well, we did not see George actually that much. He stayed in his office complex, but he would come over next door to check on how things going, uh, what the pulse of the situation was. Have had anybody had any problems, or basically just seeking information.
And as this got going, what do you think it was that made Photon so special that it made it take off as quickly as it did?
Oh, uh, the camaraderie. People just getting to meet each other and enjoy each other's company and the stories they would tell and the interaction from everybody. It was just really, really neat.
Now, that camaraderie eventually kind of evolved into the start of the tournament scene and the competitive nature. How did tournaments begin to evolve out of Photon?
Basically, they started one tournament or league actually, and you just pick random friends that you played with, and you got together and then come together with a 5, 6 man team, and it just evolved right from there, and it just get more. It was like football got more competitive and just getting into things.
I think there was definitely some prestige among the players as you got to different levels, if you were a mega warrior or whatnot. What were some of the levels of recognition that players could go for, and what did you need to achieve them?
Well, it was basically on the amount of your score. You scored a certain amount of points, and you achieve that level. Like Alpha Warrior was 500, Mega Warrior was 1,000, and so on and so forth.
I have to ask, what was your high score?
My high score was 2,150.
Fantastic. Would you say most Photon players probably still remember their high score?
Oh yes, yeah, that's bragging rights. That's bragging rights.
Certainly, some of the best could claim those bragging rights. Who were, in your mind, who were some of the best players, and who do you specifically remember as standouts from that center?
Oh, there are multitudes of players. You can't put that into a group of 5, 10, 50. There were just so many good players, and each player was an individual, and they brought their own critique to the game. I mean, some of my best employees were some of the best players, and they also they became Photon cartoon characters. The center actually used them as a player for the game.
Yes, now at some point the idea of the TV show came up. What do you remember
Yes.
from when that idea first was brought to you, and from that time that they were starting to cultivate this information and borrow player names? What do you remember about the whole concept of the TV show being introduced?
Oh gosh, that was such a long time ago. They brought it. George came and talked to us about it, and they were saying that they were going to have a TV show produced. Basically, when they brought the film crew in to do the filming for the show, that's when we really found out about it. And I think it was the group called Bandai that was doing.
Now, when they brought the film crew in, as you were saying, some of these players became actual characters or the basis for a character, including yourself. You are the basis for which Lord Beathan was created.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you go by Lord Beathan as your player name?
Yes, yes.
And something I read, did that come about because were you part of a society for creative anachronisms?
Creative anachronism.
Anachronism, thank you.
Yeah, it's basically a medieval reenactment society where you get to come up with your own persona and your own medieval character, and they had specific events where you could go in and participate as a character, and you actually had uh, real live combat. I became Lord Beathan because I was awarded an award of arms. You get to be king for a year, basically, and you win that title by fighting in tournaments. And if you win the tournament, the crown tourney, that you get to be king. And I was awarded an award of arms for service to the crown.
So that's the origin of Lord Beathan, which I only know that
Yes.
little tidbit because it happened to appear in one of the books. Did you know that?
Yes. Yes.
Um, so that's interesting. So you had a character created based on you. That's got to be something kind of cool. And you actually were the basis for an action figure too, which I understand you own the prototype of the never produced Lord Beathan
I
action figure. How did that come about?
I well, one of my employees, Brad Lewis, is a very, very dear friend of ours, uh, found it on eBay, and he bid on it and purchased it and gave it to me. and bless his heart, he paid $500 for it.
That is definitely a very special piece of history, and not everybody can say that they were a character that is remembered or can be found on eBay. And as we were talking about, some of the other players there had their names or their bases borrowed for parts of a show. Do you remember who some of the characters might have been based on?
Bodie Lee was based on a gentleman named Wade Deshane. And Tivia was based on a lady named Jeanette.
Did she go
Yes,
by the player named Jet?
that's her.
Yes. And you had an actual player who went by Parsival too, correct?
Yes,
Steve Holt?
I have to. Yes, thank you. Yes, Steve Holt was Parsival.
Were there any other characters that were based off of players that you recall?
What was the big orange guy? I'm thinking of a player he was called Recon.
Would you be thinking
Pike,
Pike?
yes.
Oh, okay, Pike.
Oh, no, Pike. Pike. Pike was another gentleman whose player name was Moon Pie.
Okay, and how about a Leon? Did you have a Leon?
Yes, that's why I was thinking about that. It was Recon.
Ah, okay. Well, Recon can take comfort that not only did he inspire a character, but my pet gecko is named Leon also. So that must have been a really cool experience when that all started to
It
come
really
about. What did some of the other players think of this? Did they ever comment about the idea of a TV show or what that might mean?
Well, basically, most of the players thought that because they were the older players that played professionally,
Mm-hmm.
That it was a cartoon show for kids on Saturday mornings.
Sure.
But so we had a hoot on characters being named after us and stuff like that.
When did the impact of the TV show and the toy line really start to affect the nature of what Photon was or the nature of your clientele?
Well, basically when they came out with the show, we saw a larger influx of younger kids coming and playing, and they really at the center they didn't really talk about the TV show, but it was mentioned a time or two. But most of them were just really into playing.
Do you think that Photon ended up with something of an identity crisis at some point because it had this base with the teen and adult players who were taking it at a competitive level, and then all of a sudden there becomes this interest from a younger level, which of course a lot of laser tag has catered to in the subsequent years. Do you think that was a bit jarring in the beginning? How did you navigate that?
Well, in personal opinion, I think Photon could have become a major sport. A lot of our older players looked at Photon not as Star Wars, but the movie Rollerball.
Oh.
And it became, just real, they would, travel the country to different Photon fields, playing the different teams, and they get in their tournaments and stuff like that. And the kids were just coming to have a good time.
And did you yourself travel to other centers and have those experiences?
Well, I got a chance to travel to other centers because I was on the management crew that trained employees on how to run the center.
And how many different centers do you think you went to?
5. And I went to San Antonio, California, Oklahoma, Ottawa, New York.
Very cool.
But I did not get to participate in the tournaments because I was just there to train the employees. And unfortunately, being put into management, I wasn't allowed to play in the tournaments.
That makes sense.
But I really wanted to play in the tournaments.
I can imagine. It looks like everybody had a wonderful time and some great friendships came out of that. And it's pretty cool to see how with Facebook and different social media that some of these friendships endure today.
Oh, yes. We have, people We talk on an almost daily basis. I mean, this has been 30 years ago, and we still check up on each other and have little get-togethers. We'll meet for dinner or something someplace, and it grew into a real family event.
Now, something that I don't know if you can say that it came out of that, or maybe it's just something that has given a new dimension to that. But 3 years ago, when we hit the 30th anniversary of Photon, a celebration took place and has become an annual event called Photon out in Laurel, Maryland. Are you familiar with
Yes.
Photon?
Oh, very, very familiar with that.
And what did you think when you
Very
first heard
familiar.
that was going to happen?
I was hopeful that it was going to be a resurgence, for the Photon theme. A lot of players were, very interested in going, but unfortunately, it was for some distance that people couldn't afford to go.
Being that it has
But
become something annual, hopefully that's an opportunity for more people to experience it and get to play with that vintage equipment and get that feel in their
right,
hands again.
they're actually going to have a laser tag convention here in Dallas in March, and I plan on attending that.
Fantastic. Well, having gone to the Focon, I can tell you it's definitely a joy to be able to experience that, and so hopefully there's opportunities for people to relive and re-experience Photon. In your opinion, it sounds like you think that there could be a second life for it, but do you feel like Photon was part of a nostalgic moment in time, or with some of these recent incarnations, do you think that there's a chance there could be a second life for Photon?
Sadly, I do not think it may be a local event somewhere where that is sustained, but we've evolved, and the culture has evolved, and I, unfortunately, I don't think Photon will ever take off again on a vast scale, which is very sad
Do you think there was
because,
just something special about that moment in history?
well, it rode in on the short tails of Star Wars,
Hmm.
and it was just it was so big that you were actually presented not just a cartoon you could play or a video game. You could actually come in to an actual playing field and physically participate and enjoy everything. It was so neat.
Now, I know as somebody who continues to play laser tag to this day, in fact, to last night even, I play laser tag very frequently,
Uh-huh.
and I totally give all the credit for the beginnings of it to Photon, and the laser tag industry has certainly just exploded, and there's more laser tag out there now, I understand, than ever before. What do you think when you see how big laser tag has become? To think back to those early days and that you were there at the beginning of what became this tremendous entertainment venue.
Well, I enjoyed your post very much where you went to the Laser Tag Museum and showed all the up and coming equipment and the development, and it's like, oh wow. I just wish it could have maintained its original form and grew bigger, but no, that was not to be.
Well, it evolved certainly into something that people are still enjoying today, and I think we can all give plenty of credit to George Carter, the inventor, and to the people who got it off and running in the beginning. And
Yes, definitely.
going to the laser tag museum and getting a tour from Eric Guthrie was really something very special. And as a collector, I know I always wonder about what is still out there. So I've got to ask, did you keep any cool souvenirs from the Photon days, or do you remember any memorabilia items that somebody might still
Oh,
have?
yes. I myself have my prized possessions. Um, when they were renovating, upgrading Photon, they put in a railing systems to separate the chrome bars and stuff. But they drilled into the floor of the concrete floor of the Photon Center, and so they could sink the pylons into the floor. And I have two of the original concrete core samples from Photon.
Oh, wow.
So, so I actually possess a piece of Photon,
That
the
is
actual
pretty cool
playing field,
history. Oh my goodness.
and I have a couple pieces of the original design equipment
Very cool.
that.
Were there other items of a memorabilia nature? Like I know there were bumper stickers and postcards, things of that nature.
Oh gosh, T-shirts, pins, uh, teacups. I've got. I don't know if I should be saying this. I got original copies of the blueprints of the playing field, and there was just so much out there.
Very cool. Hopefully a lot of that landed in the hands of people who will treasure it and care for it because it was something special to them.
Well, the gentleman who bought me the Lord Beathan figure, Brad Lewis, has a shrine in his house. He has several Photon items, posters, helmets and gear and stuff like that. But he's got a little shrine that he set up for him to pay homage to it.
Very cool. Well, and perhaps he's acquired some of the things that did come out because I know there was a lot of merchandising, not just for the centers, but certainly when the show came out, because there were this action figure line and the books and the book series. I just want to touch on because it seemed to me that the book series had the most little Easter eggs in it as homage to Photon. For example, I know that they named a character Gambler from the planet Kenilworth, which has got to be an homage to Mike Murphy, the manager at the Kenilworth location.
Uh,
So I mentioned the tidbit I found in the book about you. What do you think of the fact that you kind of continued on in the book series?
well, unfortunately, I never got around to reading any of the books, but it's very neat that the theme of Photon carried on and continues. And seeing the books and stuff was really neat.
Well, I must say for me, being a child of the 80s who didn't get to experience the first generation of Photon, that's actually what brought me to the appreciation after the fact. And there is so much still out there and so many players who do still have such wonderful nostalgic memories and whether there's an actual afterlife for Photon or just in people's hearts, I think that it really was one of those special things that made a tremendous impression on people. And do you have any other thoughts or memories that you'd like to share that maybe we haven't touched on?
Just the amount of friends I made, lifelong friends, all my life experiences and traveling through life. Photon was the biggest accumulation of friendships that I had. And they were, just to this day are just so lasting. It wasn't just a cordial meeting with somebody, we share family events and stuff together, and I think that was or is my most cherished position of Photon is the friends I've made.
That's tremendous. And it's wonderful that that can be part of the lasting legacy. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to reminisce and think back and share with us some thoughts and memories from the original Photon. Beathan Miller, the manager from the flagship Dallas facility, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.